great. And so we're now, I mean, I was shocked, Norman, when you said we're halfway through. It seems like we're only at the early stages, so kind of a bit panicky about what we're getting to. But it's kind of interesting to have these kind of monthly reflections together, because then you sometimes realise that although time seems to whiz past, things have changed quite a lot in that time. I wonder if we could start just with maybe a headline or two. Last time we were talking about surprises, and I wondered whether anybody had any surprises in this last month. New surprises, in other words. Anything they wanted to share?
I would say, in my case, my surprise is how exponentially fast everyone that you talk to are using AI in different areas and different more intense way, I would say. Or maybe I'm more aware of it because I'm talking about it or asking about it. And I think it's a parallel thing. I think they are using it exponentially fast, and I am being more aware.
Yes, I feel like it's a combination of those, but there just seems to be a lot of TV programs and news headlines about AI. So, but as you say, maybe we're paying more attention to those. So,
courses, lots of courses for people to use AI. Retired people, for school, for education, for different areas.
Yeah. Any other surprises for anybody else?
Yeah, I think my surprise is I'm not surprised anymore about lots of things. So, you know, and I guess I've been using it now for a few months, probably since early December. So I'm just not surprised anymore about the quality of ideas it can generate very quickly from very simple prompts, or the way it actually improves significantly the way I can write for different audiences. There's so many things that maybe I was surprised initially, but I just assume now it's just going to happen when I do it. So maybe that is a sort of surprise. And it never ceases to surprise me that when you engage in a conversation that's unfolding, how it unfolds, the quality of the ideas, the way things are expressed, and the way that things are opened up in a truly generative way. So that never ceases to surprise me when I get involved in it.
Yeah. So not surprised by surprises, Jenny.
But surprised by results.
Yeah, true.
Well, it's more than results, isn't it, Josie? It's actually the process. The conversational process is what surprises me, and the way it takes off in different directions. I think, I mean, one of the things I've learned as well more recently is to challenge more, and sometimes that is a surprise. The way it reacts to challenge is a surprise. So what was I doing recently? Recently I was pursuing a line of inquiry, and ideas were being generated, and I was very comfortable for quite a while. And then suddenly I said, well, no, this can't be right, can it? And then it sort of went down a, well, let's think again type of process, and ended up with quite a different configuration of ideas. And that was a surprise. That was a sort of revelation that if you challenge in particular ways, it will not only accept it, but then regenerate in a very interesting way.
Maybe it's egoless. So it
I think from the language it is egoless. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not afraid to say, "Oh, sorry, that's a dead end. Let's start again and do something different." Yeah.
Can I just say, Jenny, before we invite you, just on that same trend, going down and down a link and getting answers and so on, I'm also interested in, unlike humans, it always offers to do more. It always says I can do this. I haven't asked it to do that, but it says, would you like me to do this or this or this, which humans don't usually do they? They don't usually say, would you like me to do a lot more?
Yes, it's eager to work and to think.
Yeah. Jenny?
I wasn't going to answer the question, I was going to ask a question. We're saying it, AI. I mean, what do we actually mean? Are we talking, in Norman, in your case, about Claude? What are we referring to?
Yeah. In my case, my preferred tool now is Claude, and I've gone away from ChatGPT, given all the things that are happening in America and the way ChatGPT has agreed to support the military in America with almost unconditional use of AI. So for those sorts of reasons, I've now gone very firmly with Claude.
Sorry, do you have, just a question, do you have, or which of you have a paid version?
I have a paid version.
Are you the only one, or?
I had it before. I unsubscribed recently.
Who were you subscribing to, Ali Rosa?
I had ChatGPT premium before.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I think that makes a difference. I have realized also that when people talk about the paid version, they always have the disposition. What Melissa was saying, there's always this, with the disposition for work, but the kind of answers maybe are more restricted.
Mm.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there is a big difference between the subscribed versions and the free versions, and that then becomes an equity issue in the big scheme of things.
But it also raised my suspicions, as I said in my written response to the questions.
Mm-hmm.
One of the people involved in the project I'm talking about had used ChatGPT to get legal advice. Now, when I challenged that on the non-paid version of ChatGPT, it insisted that I pay before I could get an answer, which is just reinforcing my cynicism, skepticism.
Which in a way it's logical in terms of if it's a tool. I mean, because it's such a fantastic tool or such a game changer, basically, it seems unfair. But if you think about it as an app, it happens the same thing with all paid versions. If you have even Microsoft, you have a small number of possibility to have a drive, and then if you pay a version, you have a bigger drive or something like that. So I guess it seems more unfair when it's such a powerful tool.
But it is also actually constraining, which is another point. Yes. That's partly why, because I didn't have access to a tool that actually could have done anything meaningful for experimentation for myself. Yes. I fell back on slightly tweaking the brief and looking at something not exactly what perhaps Norman had in mind originally.
Okay. Pip, did you want to say anything about any surprises? I'm sorry, I can't read your face, so I can't. Hi.
Oh. Right, yeah, I tried using something called Hereafter AI, which is an app in the iOS. I think so. So there were two strands to what I seemed to be looking at. So there was one strand which was how AI can support managing grief, and the other strand was looking at AI and diabetes. So for grief, I used Hereafter. So it responds to, you can respond to prompts and questions from this automated interviewer to create a set of memories, to create an avatar to chat to. So an example prompt would be something like, what's one of your most memorable birthdays? And if you don't like the prompt, you say, tap on show me another, and then once you're happy with it, you can click remember that and customize your prompts with topics and things, and you can customize the interviewer's voice. The challenges that I had with that, it would glitch, so there could be an internet problem, and then things would seem to disappear, and then you would need to log in or whatever. But that could be something at my end. Internet in an old Victorian house doesn't work. And things like other challenges were again, just going to link to the previous conversation, there was a paywall and pricing plans. You can also sort of add photos to memories. Now, took a sort of step back from it. So the tagline of this AI grief app was remembering reinvented, and when I prepared for the first meeting that we had in March, I think I came across a problem of memory. And then I came across the idea, I miss you more than I remember you. And so the way that we curate remembering has been changed. And then there's also the idea that you can either record memories of yourself or for someone else. And then I thought one of the surprises was, well, is that ethical? So, someone who's passed away, how on earth do they provide ethical consent? And certainly when someone is ill, they might have something like a deprivation of liberty, or, they might not be capable of doing that. The other one was this glucose AI app that I looked at. So again, there was quite a lot of logging in issues. It's called Gluco AI. So I was diagnosed with diabetes last year, and it was a bit of a surprise. It's not sort of terrible, but I wanted to use AI to see if I could and bring the sugar level down. So I used this app called Gluco AI. It dissects your plate and looks at what you've got on your plate and gives you this feedback. Again, I had a lot of problems with logging in. Also, you've got to give quite a lot of personal information away, so you have to state what your sugar level is. Do you really want to tell Apple what your sugar level is? I don't know. Then also you get a lot of notifications. You have to ask app not to track. So sometimes I feel that these things can be helpful, but sometimes I think it's almost a bit of an AI circus.
Invasive.
Yes. So those were my sort of reflections and surprises.
Okay, thank you. And you've kind of showed us some possibilities, but also some things that didn't work so well, including the glitches. Thank you. So I think everybody's spoken now, but maybe what we could do, given we are quite a small number, is perhaps talk a bit about what we've been trying to do. I'm also interested in us being able to share what isn't working or how our projects... I mean, Jenny, you've already said you were away from all of the things that you could use, so you had to kind of slightly rethink what you were trying to do. So this is a place to share those kinds of having to rethink and so on. We don't imagine these projects or experiments just move seamlessly forward. So perhaps we could go and hear from everybody something about what they tried, what worked, what didn't work, what you learned, something along those lines. But I'm wary of the time, so if we could just make this really sort of headlines leaving us wanting to know more. Is that okay? Does that seem like a useful way forward, so that we've shared something great? Good, I'm getting some thumbs up. So, Ali Raisa, would you like to start? You were very passionate about your use last time. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, this inquiry actually helped me to think more deeply about how I use AI. And my main concern right now is how it links to social isolation and depression. I think, so I use AI predominantly by the chatbot, which is ChatGPT, which I mentioned that I use the premium one.
Yeah.
And so I try to actually ask questions that I usually involve my friends and family about them. For example, I can have some examples actually. So if I want to plant a tree or something in my garden, or I want to just know about some plants, I may, if I don't have AI, I may just call Norman, say that, okay, I want to do this. And we actually, it's a kind of catch up like after a month. Then I might get some collateral information as well. Not just to the point, to the what I want, and also after that catch up, we might like organize something together, and we might meet up. But right now I just ask AI gives me an answer to the point. I do and water my plants or everything or anything that I want to do, and it's done. So it's just a simple thing, but gradually it makes me isolated because I'm not going to talk to people that I used to do that as not just a thing to learn about that simple question, just to keep in contact with them. It's one thing. And the other thing is that I really part of the medical things I asked ChatGPT, to be honest. So I asked about some of the medical conditions about my family and myself, and also about the patients that I see every day. Which, to be honest, I can tell that ChatGPT is just like a very, very simple and shallow, compact medical handbook, not more of that. But we rely actually highly on that for our treatment and for our day-to-day tasks, which is really, really, I think, is annoying, and it may gives us some false information in many times that I experience a lot. So I think another headline for me would be that.
Yes. Okay, well, that's really interesting. So, shallow isn't a word we've heard before, so that's interesting. And how did you feel about... Sorry. Some background noise I'm picking up. How did you...
From me, maybe. The area.
It's okay. I just keep thinking that someone's saying something and I need to respond. How did you feel? Pip was talking about sharing the medical information. How did you feel about your family and friends? Presumably, if you're talking about it's anonymized for patients.
Yes. So I think now I would not share anymore, not because of the privacy, but because of that it's kind of not even useless to me, but even causing more stress. Because I think it, as a medical doctor, I think it's shaped some way that warns you about the most unfortunate thing that's going to happen for you to just seek medical advice. I think there's something like that in it. So it would, as you search Google, it's the same thing. It gives you the ultimate thing that can happen due to that symptom. Yeah. So you get you're seeking medical advice. But more personal things. For example, I'm a medical doctor. I know about cancers, but my mom got like breast cancer, and I was really worried. And instead of just, it's about social isolation as well, I think. Instead of just going to my really, really close consultant in oncology that I know, I asked ChatGPT, like 2 or 3 days, I would stick to that, giving it just blood results, every result that I have about my mom, just know about, and my only question is every time is the prognosis.
Yes.
Which is, and it gives really, really scary answers, to be honest. It also sometimes predicts for how long she's going to live, which is really, really, I think it challenged my mental health at that time. But when I spoke to my consultant, his answers were really different.
Yes.
Because we are treating a human, which is not a simple thing, not a yes/no question. So actually, my main concern usually with digital things is not privacy, because I think someday we are going to give our data to these services. But my main concern right now is that I don't see them as a valid thing to share my information.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
No worries.
I think about what you're saying sounds like what happens with doctors, on the other hand, is that you want a prognosis, and doctors are very reluctant to tell you about the timing, about what's going to happen because of liability, because of maybe the old doctors would say, you have only 3 months or whatever, and they would be fine with that because you wouldn't be sued. But now doctors are so careful about things. it's not only humanly careful regarding the prognosis, I think, but also because of liability. And in this case, probably AI is more blunt about saying things that maybe doctors are no longer, not only because of the human touch about, you're talking about humans, it's very delicate, and we don't know really how long they're going to live because there are miracles or special cases or whatever you want to call them. But then AI says, no, I don't care. You want a prognosis, this is what it is. It sounds inhuman in that sense, in two senses. One is the sensibility regarding the patient, and the other is the liability. I think it's two things that maybe regarding medical things, you go to AI because maybe you want a blunt question, answer, but then you don't like it because you'd hope to a better relationship with the doctor and say, listen, let's go through this. Maybe you know, there are cases that, I don't know whether that sounds...
I think I have to add something to what you said, is that I don't think AI look at human as a complex thing. It may have some resources, of medical resources, that can just look into it and combine them and give you the answer. But as I can see in our practice, we consider many things, you know. The AI will never know what my mom's physical reserve is. They don't know. You know? Yeah, so as you say, just wants to give you an answer, which would be the worst case scenario to do something medial.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you. That's interesting, isn't it? Thinking it's back to this idea about, Josie, you've been talking about framing the questions, and we're also looking at framing the answers from AI. So, okay, someone else want to tell us something that worked or didn't work, or building on those? Norman?
Can I just come in on the back of what Alireza was saying? Yeah, I think maybe we expect too much from it. I mean, it can't possibly understand the complexity that you've just elaborated, Alireza, and you know, maybe we just have weird expectations about what this thing can do. Where it's definitely works for me is where, and I was having this conversation with Melissa before we started, where I have quite a lot of control over what is going into it and how I'm directing it. And it's about then the quality of information that it's provided with initially to draw on. And I think it all allies to trust that there are some areas where if we have a good control over it, we can trust it. But there are other areas, and the sort of description you were giving about medical practice and trying to understand a whole human being, clearly you can't trust it in those situations because there are things it can never get hold of, because it has no sensory perception like we do, and it has no way of building up that detailed understanding about human behaviors in particular situations. So maybe we have unrealistic expectations about what it can and can't do. And I think you're absolutely right, Alireza. This idea that it can be a substitute for human interaction, again, it can't be. And if we go along that route, then people will become isolated. I mean, your example there of calling me and having a chat about something that you would like some advice on, but actually that being a place where you can have a conversation about lots of other things, you know, that is the difference between AI and human beings. So it can never be a substitute. If we want answers, and it can give us good answers about things quickly, then that's its forte. That's what it does. But it will not open up the possibility of a meetup and a chat and a lunch, you know. So it's about our expectations of AI as much as anything else.
Yes.
Yeah, should I just talk about the thing that I've been doing? Okay, so...
And then Jenny, you've signalled.
Yeah, so I there was a grant opportunity way back, I think, in November, and I wanted some quick ideas about what we might do. And this is in the context of community work that I do where I live around nature. And it came up with 5 or 6 ideas. I looked at them and I thought, oh, that's a nice idea. That appeals to me. So I'm making a judgment out of the 5 ideas it gave me that would be worth doing. And it was also because I could say it's feasible where I live. This will work. I think people will respond to it, and we can do it, basically. So you're making a lot of judgments about the ideas it's giving you, and then you take off with it. So the next stage was to prepare a proposal. I sketched out a few ideas, gave it to GPT at that time, and it generated nice document for me to use as the basis of a proposal. So that's the second way it was really useful. Again, I can judge the content of that and say, yeah, that will fit. It will fit the criteria for the bid, and we can go with it. Didn't get that grant, but then the idea was sown, and it's been reworked over and over again for other grants, and we managed to get 2 grants on the back of the idea. But it's an unfolding process, and there's some bits of that process which AI can help with, and some bits it cannot help with. And that's basically the way it's gone. So most recently, with this nature trail, we put together a video. 2 of us, Russ and I, Russ isn't here today unfortunately, walked around the trail, took photographs, created a movie. But I wanted a soundtrack to that movie. So I created a narrative and put that into GPT. Actually, it was Claude at this time. And it gave me a nice narrative, and it constructed it in a way that a speaker would speak it as opposed to you would read it. And that transcript I gave to another AI called 11 Labs, and it generated what I thought was a lovely spoken voice. It was backwards and forwards, a few iterations, fine-tuning of the transcript and everything, and eventually it came out with something which I liked, and I put that into the movie, and I was very pleased with the product. So I felt that the result was better than I could have done by myself, no doubt about it. So what am I learning from this? That it is about choosing how you work with your preferred tools. Some bits you can use, some bits you can't. As I said earlier, I'm not surprised at all about what it generates and how it improves my writing. I've gone through all that now, and that's, if you like, where I have trust in it. But there'll be other areas where I don't trust it, and that's where I am in terms of this continuum of trust.
Regarding what you're saying, Norman, I think what stands up, literally highlighted, is that you keep critical regarding the answers and not just taking in. And so because this is more organized than what I would have done, it is already better. Because it sounds to me that is the key, that you give very clear and framing prompts, as Melissa was saying, and try to make better your prompts and your communication, and then taking the answer, not just digest it, not eat it up without digesting it and being critical with it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big difference when using AI in a positive and humanly way, or just let go with the drift or with the current, so to speak.
And to be fair to AI, it's always saying that, ultimately you're the judge. You have to evaluate. What I give you is my best shot at whatever you're asking me.
In my understanding.
Ultimately, you have to take responsibility for that, and you have to evaluate it. Otherwise, you're in a risky situation.
Jenny, you was going to join in with something. Sorry, we can't hear you.
I was going to pick up the question of trust, and very conveniently Norman has come back to that at the end of what he was saying. I think my scepticism is a question of trust ultimately. And am I the only one who fears that there is some big brother somewhere collating all this data, and that at some point it may be used against me?
Sorry, are you asking me that, Jenny? Is that a general question?
I'm asking anyone.
Anyone,
really.
okay.
I have the same suspicion, maybe not necessarily like in a conspiracy theory, but in the fact that actually when you're not thinking, as we were saying with Norman, basically you're already being heard. Years ago, you have the idea of saying, oh, I want to buy a new perfume or something, and then you get perfume. You get all this funny things like wives saying good gifts for my wife in the husband's telephone or something, and it's already listening. So I don't even think about conspiracy theories, but technology that's using it, and you must be thinking about it. I have someone saying I'm very keen on asking for things that are not my normal thinking to get kind of answers from both sides, whether it's politically, whether it's in education, and because you get feed with what you're asking for, basically. I think that's my concern. And Jenny saying more about using it against you. I think that's a way of using it against you because it convinces you of what you're already thinking.
Yes, I actually asked. I was telling Norman earlier that I asked. I think it's Claude I was working with about bad actors, which is kind of what you're talking about, Jenny. And Claude came up with the internet had the same concern in the 90s. People had the same concern about the internet, and we see where it got us to, which is not great. And it was saying, I was saying about us as a group. It says you can point out that experimenting thoughtfully, talking about it openly, and developing judgment about when and how to use it is the responsible response, and that we need to feed AI with some of this stuff as well, because actually that is AI, isn't it? It is actually using all the information, all the things we ask. That is it.
Well, let me give you an analogy. What concerns me is I did 20 years ago at least now, a lot of family research, history research. Now, I didn't upload that data. I kept it for my own personal research purposes. But I also happen to watch a lot of crime programs on the television, and I know that nowadays with familial DNA they're able to use the data that has been uploaded through things like Ancestry, for example, to trace people whose DNA is perhaps familial, and they can use that to find, to home in on potential criminals. And it's this hidden, maybe in the future, use of data that at this moment we're not aware of, that constrains me to some extent.
Yes. Did you want to say something building on that, Jenny, about what you've been doing?
Well, I feel I've sort of subverted the brief, really, because I wasn't looking at any one AI. I happen to be involved in a family issue which is very complex, but basically the members of the family are in 3 different continents. There are 4 siblings spread across 3 different continents. When their parents died respectively, the will was never processed through probate. We've now reached a point where the eldest sibling, who lives in the familial home, has lost capacity following an accident. Because of the complex legal background and the fact that people are spread in different continents, the question was, how can we use technology to advance not only the information to help us move forward, but also the means of communication? And obviously it's excellent in terms of producing the communication between us. We're able to use Zoom or use Google Documents to upload the common data so that we can read it and communicate that way. Meetings, the person who is sort of managing this at the moment is one of the nephews in the family. He's au fait with all the technology, so he used, what was it? Wrote it down somewhere. The name of Otter. I'd never heard of Otter before. So he recorded meetings with the lawyers, and then had those recordings automatically made into minutes. So I'm just really observing and learning what the different technologies can do, rather than experimenting myself, and hopefully be able to look at the whole project and judge from that what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. So as I say, it's not specifically looking at one thing, and I know it's not what was intended, but I feel it potentially could be valuable.
Yes, thank you. Josie, did you want to update us on?
Oh, regarding my,
Yeah.
I've been experimenting. I'm using, because of that suspicion that Jenny has and I have, or that kind of need of privacy. I'm using Meta, which is anyway. I'm using it in WhatsApp. You have the alternative to Ask AI, which is basically Meta AI, and they have this thing about the policy and privacy policy and things that, it's words anyway, because I know they're using it anyway. But I'm using that. I think because it's simple, and I use it in the telephone all the time, like a chat, and I put things in, and it has worked better than Gemini and Copilot, which are the other ones that I've been using regarding information that I'm constructing. I tend to be very not too formal in my communication, and it has been always my difficulty, so to speak. It's not my strength. And so what I do know is that this is when you call the cleaners and you clean your house better because the cleaners are coming. So I tend to write better because I'm putting it into AI. And so any helpful things that they are doing, that AI is doing, in this case Meta is doing through either Gemini or either Copilot in Microsoft, I'm writing better because of that. And I have been basically organizing my ideas in a better way, understanding that the better I get those ideas in, the better prompt I give, the better answer I get. And that has, in a way, permeates to my human communication as well. I tend not to skip steps and try to be very clear about things. And so I'm using it for communication with inside the school with parents and stuff. So that is like something that I'm doing regarding my own use. But then my inquiry or my area would be trying to work with parents, asking them how they are using it, and trying to give tips on how educationally it could be used in a good way, or promoting humanity. Basically, I think that would be like the basis. How can any tool, in this case AI, promote humanity more than alienate humanity? And I've been using it also personally for medical reasons, Alireza, because I tend not to go to doctors. So and I tend not to like when they don't say what they should be saying. So I use AI to be very blunt about things. And it hasn't been any serious stuff like blood tests or things that instead of going to the doctor, I asked for it. And then what I have been, and I told Melissa and, the group about it, is that I'm trying to ask for the sources. It's like, what would Mayo Clinic say, or combine Mayo Clinic with some other sources that I know that are trustworthy, basically. I think that's something that also because AI is being fed with what we are telling it, I think it's very important for us to feed it with the idea of good sources as well, like use good sources, use trustworthy sources. If I'm asking about the project going to the moon, I would ask NASA or whatever knowledgeable area, Oxford University or Stanford or whatever university you would think they have expertise. And I think AI may be able to connect all these sources and give you faster answers, but with good sources. So I'm trying to use a lot of asking that and not giving a lot of personal information. So when it asks, why are you asking that? Do you have a medical problem? Are you not feeling well? Do you have any more symptoms? I say, no, fine. I was just wondering about this. I'm kind of suspicious about it. But then again, I do try to feed it with very good commands. So I ask, please. I say, thank you. I don't ask as I would ask Google, literally. So I am aware that this is an entity, so to speak. I just watched Mission Impossible, so the word entity comes to my mind every now and then, that needs to be fed with good things and good parameters if we want it to act the way we should want it to act.
Okay, thank you. if I could just build on a couple of things to share what I've been doing. I've mentioned that the AI I've used Claude, ChatGPT, and I've forgotten the other one. So I'm really doing a compare and contrast to see what happens when I use the different ones. But one of the things I think is quite interesting is you have a tireless partner to work with, who you can keep on asking and keep on refining. I've noticed that if I start talking about what I'm dealing with at the moment, that people tire quickly and don't really want to listen and really want to help me get to the essence of what it is I'm talking about. You know, that I can see, and I'm concerned that they're tiring. So it's quite interesting to have a kind of infinite resource at your disposal. But also in terms of, we've been talking about what to expect, the kind of, that not a human giving us the bold information. I'm not saying facts, but the bold information and stuff. I prompted a family discussion around a dinner table about AI, kind of talking about what we were doing and then asking people what they were doing. And there were some surprises amongst family and friends. And one of the things, and it links back to your medical information, Ali Reza, I think there's some earlier research about how sometimes people are more willing to engage with a neutral, not a person, because they haven't got to think about the person. They can just talk about what their symptoms are. Well, this wasn't medical, but this was another example of someone who is able to dump their dreadful day at work on someone who doesn't care, but is able to help them think about it. But they haven't got to worry that that person's sick of hearing about their awful days at work. So I mean, that's quite interesting, isn't it? That's another way of kind of framing your questions, knowing that this person, knowing that it's not a person, that this being...
entity.
Well, I don't know. I've just seen Project Hail Mary, so I want to really think of it as the alien in that. So, just an aside, we're just showing off our movies. You maybe need to not only think about what you're asking in terms of being very specific, but who you're asking, or is that the right word? Who you're asking, so that you would ask different people differently, and maybe you need to know who AI is. That's in inverted commas. But I'm worried because I don't think we've been doing that. It amazes me that people get their news from Facebook and their medical information from the internet and all of those kinds of things and trust it without. And also I thought that COVID revealed to us that some people don't trust any sources, or they trust sources that I wouldn't trust. So I think there's a whole set of issues in there that have been kind of like the tip of the underneath of the iceberg gradually being revealed for me. So I'm encouraged to be talking to my family. I think that's part of my project, my experiment, is to be talking to my family about what's coming out of it without actually asking them very specifically what they're doing. So that kind of links a number of issues, doesn't it? We've got things around trust and awareness and the information that comes back and what we do with it, whether we need to be informed so that we can make informed judgments about the information that comes back, and realistic as in what it is that's giving this information or giving us the feedback. I don't know, Norman, you talk a lot about, not about information, but about a partner of some description. So what do you describe what comes back to you as?
I'm sometimes gobsmacked is probably the best word for it, amazed at the quality of feedback that I get from things. And I've said a few times that I've never had the same quality of feedback, which is analytical, it's quite sophisticated, but it always has built into it what you might do to, if it's been critical, what you might do to engage with this criticism. So it's always helpful in the sense of, and I always think of John Cowan when I think of this. Of it gives you the feedback that is feed forward, that you can then take forward and progress whatever it is you're trying to think about or write about in a useful way. And I agree, Melissa, that it's tireless in the sense it's always there. And sometimes just before I go to bed, I'll have been thinking about a question while I've been watching the telly, and then put it in. And either usually I sit up and wait for the answer, but I have gone to bed as well, and then slept on it. So it's always there. And as you say, it's patient and tireless. It doesn't judge you. And I think this, from what you were just saying then about why people would share certain things like a really bad day, is because it's non-judgmental at the end of the day. It just reflects back, the things that you are hinting at, or if not directly asking it. So I think all those things, for me, and this discussion has sort of consolidated it a little bit. Living well with AI seems to me to be about learning to trust AI, and it's not a blanket trust. It's very nuanced, sophisticated and selective, and I think that's what I'm beginning to think about now, the areas where I'm very happy to trust it and to share information about myself or what I'm doing, and then areas where I would be more reluctant to. And I think as a group maybe that's something we could cast quite a lot of light on, the sort of nuanced understanding of what trusting AI means.
We've revealed a number of different aspects of that nuance, I think, in the discussions today. So should we look forward, because we're coming towards the end of the meeting, we have a bit of time to be thinking about maybe ideas about what you might take forward, so that we can imagine what you might be doing in the next month before our next meeting. So is there one thing you want to pick up and explore more? Has anybody been inspired by listening to what others have been talking about, or even simply their own experience? Because Ali Reza, you sounded a little different from your conversation last meeting. So it sounds as though something's changed slightly. You're on mute, so.
Yeah, actually, I think it changed because I tried to think about what I'm doing and being more pragmatic about it. But I think the context of AI right now is trying to subconsciously make us not to think about how we are using it. There's a question that was asked. I mean, it's maybe about my generation, that they always ask us, is it easier for you to call your friend on phone or to message them on WhatsApp or like iMessage? And I think it's 90% of people from my generation would say messaging. They receive calls, they wait for it to hang up and they message back right away. They don't want to talk on phone. So if you ask someone, which is easier for you, if they hesitate or if they say, no, I want to make a phone call, then probably, in my opinion, the use of AI is so much different than what AI is now aiming to. Because it emerged as a chatbot. It could have been emerged as a phone line that you call and talk to some robotic thing, but it didn't. As we saw, it integrated into WhatsApp, so it's going to be really, really something like what we do every day. So when we use it, we don't think, okay, this is AI, and I have to be safe. I have to trust. Do I have to trust it or not? It just wants us in a context that we don't ask this question from ourselves. So, and it happens with me. I'm a medical doctor, but I ask private questions about medical conditions of my parents about with AI, and I don't realize it after days because I was in an emotional state, and that chatting was like chatting with anyone. The screen was the same as anything else that I'm doing. Okay, so I didn't even think, okay, should I trust or not? Is this information right or not. I just wanted to answer. So I think many people now are not going to just being pragmatic about AI or deep about AI and see themselves as a third-person view, you know. So I think my main thing from now on is being more like that, to see it as another point of view, and that's what I've been doing in these last month as well.
It reduces your critical thinking by being it so normal, isn't it?
Yeah, because
being so part of your life.
Yeah, it's the same device, it's the same WhatsApp. It's just you won't notice it's a different thing that answering you. You're just enjoying the same thing that you're doing with your family and friends on that WhatsApp thing. I think it's really smart.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good conclusion from us. It's really smart. Okay, anybody else had another thought about what they'll take forward in the next month?
I like the way we're seeing things critically again, because we're saying how non-judgmental it is and how we could actually count on questioning and to give prompts anytime and regarding something and being repetitive, and it will never criticize you back, saying so it's a good thing. But then in the other hand, as I was mentioning, it is also very indulging. So whatever I'm doing at work, like a hard day of work, and I dump everything in this entity, and it says, well, normally it will say, Melissa, you're such a good person. I know you're tired. This happens to you. I'm so aware of it. And so in a way, maybe in a natural conversation, when the other one gets tired, you'll say, well, haven't you thought about maybe it's you, that you're having all these bad days at work?
Yes.
Maybe this entity won't say that. Unless you say, take the role of a psychologist.
Yeah.
And please be critical about it. So you must be critical with yourself to make a prompt that will give you back the answers that will be critical. Because if you just dump the day at work or whatever happens at the school, like I'm having problems with someone, maybe someone will say, why did you fire her? Just make her redundant, because you have this emotional situations where maybe it makes you think, well, maybe it's not me, maybe I should just resign and go somewhere else or whatever. So you have to be critical, to be asking the right questions again, to be critical with yourself. So if I'm the head, maybe I should ask, to take the role of a head, and this is what's happening. What are the best choices, or a psychologist? So is it me, or is it the other ones?
Yeah. Norman.
Yeah, one of the best prompts you can give AI is to say, what questions would you ask of me?
Yeah.
And it will give you a whole pile of questions, and then you can say, well, ask me those questions. So it is about understanding the iterative nature of these things. You don't have to necessarily ask it to be critical of you. Just ask it, well, from this conversation, the stuff I've just given you, what are the obvious questions I need to be asking of myself? And it will do exactly what you've just said. So it's about us learning how to use it, live with it,
and us being critical all the time, having critical thinking. As a dear friend always say, is there any other kind of thinking if it's not critical? Here in Egan used to say that.
Okay, well, that's probably quite a good place for us to kind of draw to a close. Has that inspired anybody else to think that what they've been doing, perhaps they can be, in some ways, more demanding of the AI than allowing it to just quickly give us the bold information? Even if it is from the trusted sources, we're actually thinking a bit more now about briefing AI, whatever we're using, to make sure that the purposes we think we're using it for is being achieved. Okay. Any final thoughts? Because I think we're running out of time for the meeting. So there will be another meeting in a month. I haven't got the date in front of me, but I think it was flagged up, and obviously you'll get more information from us. This time, hopefully, we will get the AI's version of this meeting, and we can see if it bears any resemblance to the thing we all participated in. Was it joy and wild partying? Maybe not.
Melissa, thank you as always. You do a great job chairing the rabble. And always interesting stuff emerges. So
Yes,
you have a skill. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye bye.